Okay, right. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are across the globe. Welcome to what's it, On the Sofa with Esther and Ejay. Well, today, ladies and gentlemen, we will be interviewing the legendary Steven Collazo. Who's that? He's also a comedian, right? And Steven is the lead singer. It's right for the band Odyssey, and so we're just going to be taking him apart today, getting to know who is the person behind the artist, and getting to know a little bit more about what's coming up and what he's doing with himself lately.
Yes, indeed. And so, it is an honor to meet you today and to have this conversation. I was speaking to someone earlier on, and they're my favorite band. I really like them, and I'm not sure if I'm their friend anymore because I vibe with them well, as you do. But certainly, we're going to find out a bit more about you,
Steven. And Steven, I usually like to ask my guests, who is Steven in a nutshell, in a peanut shell, in a coconut shell, in a crab shell? I think that sounds good.
Yeah, I think that sounds great.
Oh, real easy questions for starters. Who is Steven in a shell of some description? I have no idea. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm only kidding. No, actually, I'm just a loving, caring, but determined spirit. Who just wants to make good things happen, to leave a happy trail as much as I can wherever I go. That's what I think I can say.
That would say it. Brilliant. And so in terms of making good things happen, Steven, what are those good things? To date, what have you been doing? What are you about?
Well, the first thing I have to say is that to have the gift, the honor, and the privilege to make people happy, if just for an hour. That is...
See that? It makes people happy.
Just for an hour, though.
Well, just for an hour.
What do you do for the other 23 hours?
Well, I don't know. That's up to them after they leave. I've done my job.
I've done your job.
For an hour.
Wipe your brow.
That's right. Thank you. But the thing is, and sometimes I have to remember not to take it for granted.
Yes.
That our music is part of people's, what's that term they use? It's a soundtrack for a lot of people's lives. There are so many songs for me, so many memories. They're gigs, they're an income. And that's not to take away from the other things that they are, but I have to always remember that for the people who have paid money to come somewhere and see us, this is memories. This is part of their lives. And so for that hour, or hour and a quarter, or 45 minutes, or whatever it is, I and my colleagues are transporting people back to a time in their lives.
Yes.
What a privilege, what an honor to be able to do that for people. And make them happy, hopefully make them happy.
And is that the key to you being humble? Because before we came here, we were just talking about a lot of different stuff, and with having the success you have and the platform that you have, it's very easy for people to have a huge ego, especially in this type of business. But you seem, you appear to be really down to earth, easy to talk to, very engaging. What prepared you for that? How were you able to manage that amongst all this chaos?
Well, because my mother, as you know, is the founder of the group.
Okay.
And
thanks, Mom.
So yeah. And back in the day, my mom was a legal secretary.
Okay.
While she was building this Odyssey thing. So first of all, there was the being black, and then there was being a woman.
Yes.
To which I witnessed everything. And
such as, can you elaborate a bit?
Well, racism and sexism in 2 words.
2 words.
My mom was a feminist long before the term came into vogue.
Yes.
And I made a joke to you earlier. I used to say to my mom, "Mom, I'll tell you something, I'd never be the man you is."
Fantastic.
Because she was just so, not to take anything away from my father in any way. Funnily enough, he gave me quite a lot of the girly things. He's the one who taught me how to cook and taught me the importance of and looking after yourself, keeping yourself clean, and all the things that sometimes some men don't quite learn. Sorry. But Mom was she was the assertive one.
Yes.
But it's too late now.
Oh, it's too late. It's all gone. Cat's out the bag.
So that was the importance of seeing what it's really like, so that when you got to a point, or even as I got to a point of being caught in the glitz and the glam of it, to not believe the hype.
Yeah,
because I saw it long before the hype was really, when Native New Yorker first came out in 1977, we were still living in the projects, in the council houses, do you lie?
Yes.
Wow, yes.
And Mom and my auntie's picture were plastered all over the New York City subway system.
Wow.
Everywhere. You couldn't go anywhere. You couldn't ride a train. You couldn't see anything without seeing this picture. The album, the debut album, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, we were still living in the projects.
Yes.
And, I mean, it all looks glamorous and everything. So people in the projects were thinking, oh, y'all are doing really well. Oh, you're rolling in it now. We're still thinking, yeah, we're really rolling in it now. The same shite we was rolling in yesterday, actually. But it took some time before any of it actually sort of started catching up. And then finally we had to get out of the projects because we almost became targets for different
Absolutely, I can imagine.
Yet we were not rich. We weren't even well off. We weren't really any better off than we were the day before all of those posters were plastered all over the subway system. So it's all an illusion. And that's what keeps me humble, is the knowledge that it's all an illusion, it's not real.
And can end at any time.
And it can end at any time. And it has ended, not ended, but it has subsided considerably for periods of time where just nothing was happening and nothing was going on and work was hard. I've had loads of jobs, security guard. I actually like cleaning jobs because it keep you fit, it's free gym. And yet, you don't have to take the work home with you after it's all said and done. And yet you can earn a decent living and while you're waiting for the next, or trying to get other things going. So that's what keeps me humble.
And that's brilliant because then I have the privilege of interviewing so many old school artists, and that's one thing that they talk about, that maturity that...
No, mature school.
Sorry, Ejay?
Mature school artists.
Okay, more mature, sorry, not old school, apologies. More mature school artists.
I'm going to call you Mr. Semantics.
That's going to be a long interview. We've got 45 minutes, Ejay.
Fine. Yes.
45 minutes. Please don't disturb me for another 2 seconds.
Okay.
As I was saying...
Time's up.
And what you've just spoken about are some of the platforms and the bedrock that a lot of these artists stand on. And for me, that gives them a rather unique take on life. And also it adds to them in terms of their personality, in terms of what they deliver to their audience, because they're not in the ego, but they're coming from a place of, this is my art, this is my gift, this is my skill, this is what I'm good at, this is what I love, and this is what I want to impart to others, because you're influencing, you're impacting lives. And what you just shared there, it was so, it's coming from that place of humility. And I feel that adds even more to your performance. Does that make sense?
Well, yes, but what I would like to add to that, what my wish is for a lot of the artists, and I mean no disrespect to anyone, we all perceive what we perceive. But the one word that I would have liked to include in all of that you just said is what a privilege.
Yes.
It is to do what we do.
Yes.
To actually get paid for doing what we do. Doing what we enjoy. Sometimes I think my fellow artists occasionally forget that this is not just yes, it's your art and great, yes, and we've struggled hard to get here and to be able to do it. But especially when you're, what was the term you used, mature school?
Yes, mature school. Old school.
Okay.
We forget over all these years what a privilege it is to be 20, 30, 40 years along.
Yes.
And still going, still be doing what we do, getting paid for it, still having people come to see us in our case, there are even 20-year-olds.
What would you call the 20-year-olds, EJ?
Picnic. Youth them. Younglings.
Leave them. Well, listen, thankfully that I'll be working till I'm 117 years old.
Absolutely.
Thanks to them.
Absolutely.
And regardless of what we think of them now, these will be the good old days for
These
those
will be
children.
the good old days for them.
Okay, so for you, Stephen, what do you feel Odyssey brings as a uniqueness to the audience? Is that word okay, uniqueness?
No, but we'll go with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine.
English is a great language for that reason. You can actually make words up.
Yeah, I know.
And it's still cool.
And you can put ality at the end of it as well. And you make it fantastic. Causality. Uniqueness-ality.
I would say
Partiality.
that Odyssey now under my stewardship is what's unique about it. Well, not so much unique, but what I like to think is making it work now is that old school meets new school meets old school.
Brilliant.
And I think that that's what it is. So people of an age who remember Odyssey from back in the day can still come and sing along. Youngsters can groove with it because there are elements in the new music. It's not new music, but it's old music done new.
Yes. Well, we've talked about the outcome of your music, but how does the creative process actually start for you? What happens? You haven't got a track hasn't been created yet, and you now know you've got to do an album. What's your process in terms of that music coming through?
It kind of depends, really, but I would say Odyssey began, even its very name, its very title was a journey. That's what it's always been about. And that's kind of the approach that I broadly take to creating music anyway.
Okay.
It's, well, what trip do I want to take today? Today I feel like a bit of salsa. Ding, 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 ding. And that's what it'll start from.
Right.
Right there, just from that little lick.
Yes.
Something like that.
So are you feeling anything at this moment in time? What's coming to you as you're sitting here with us?
This kind of sorry. I'm a lot slower than I look. Trust me.
They treat me bad.
Hush-ality.
Call the police.
We'll leave that for a moment.
Okay. Well,
But I will say that, for example, I also have to bear in mind that there is a precedent already. There is a mold. There is a framework. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. And even though I don't want to be confined by it,
Sure.
I also don't want to disregard it, because you get some groups who remake themselves so much so that their core audiences and whatever, it's like, who are you?
Yes.
And they're not interested. By the same token, let's see, the word I think I'd like to use is that I listen to a lot of old school stuff, and the word I like to use is channel it.
Yes.
Brilliant.
No, absolutely.
Definitely.
So that it feels
It's fluid.
familiar.
Absolutely.
I know this. You kind of do know it, but you don't know it. And I'll give you an example of somebody right now who I'm very grateful for. His name is Bruno Mars.
Oh,
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
And that's what he's really doing. I mean, he hasn't stolen anything outright, but he has channeled loads of stuff. So it's old school meets new. That's why I say it's not unique. But
I love jazz funk. I mean, jazz funk was kind of my thing. I loved you know, when I was growing up. Don't ask me who the artists were. Just once I heard it, I knew what it was, and it was my groove. And then it just disappeared.
Yeah.
And Bruno Mars kind of brought back that jazz funk thing, because there's just something about that kind of music for me anyway that was it connected. So being around a lot of artists, singers, and performers, you know, sometimes you get people who can have a melody, but they can't write lyrics, and then you get some people who can write lyrics, but they can't write melodies. Do you fall on any side of that, or are you both lyrical, can write lyrics and put melodies together? You get a melody in your head. I know, like you said, when the salsa thing comes, you just do a salsa beat or salsa rhythm, and then those words then start to form.
I'm actually on a completely different side of the fence.
Oh, wow, tell me.
Than either of those. I hear music in productions.
Okay.
So I hear I'm a composer more so than a lyricist or a melody or a songwriter in that sense.
Yes.
So I hear a complete groove in my head. I hear bass lines, and I hear drum beats, and I hear piano bits, and and strings and horns, and I hear everything that goes in the song.
Fantastic.
So most of the time I work with singers who have a good head for what you described, either melody or lyrics or both, and I'll just present a groove to them, almost a completely finished thing, and they'll be like, oh, and then within that they can usually
find the nuances
to make the melody. So that's a different school than most people. I can write melodies and lyrics for other people's music.
Yes.
I struggle, funnily enough, with writing melodies and lyrics to my own music.
Yes.
I don't know why that is.
Yes.
It's one of those mental blocks that I've never quite been able to get around. But so that's the school I come from. I hear productions, and then I have to sort of mold a melody and lyric into a basically a finished track.
Right. How do you know when your work's finished?
When I don't hate it.
Now, is that a long process or that short process?
It varies.
It varies, right?
Well, the thing is, it no matter what, especially if you listen to it too much, it's never finished, or it's never right, or there's always something you can make better.
Yes.
So for me, the finished thing is when I don't hate it. That's when I can listen through it once or twice, and I don't hate. There's always going to be a little bit. I could have done without that, but I could live with it.
Yes.
Because the perfectionism thing makes you never get anything finished.
Yeah.
I have a recording studio. I get artists in all the time, and it's just that same thing. Listen, you are never going to be 100% happy. You know, if you take this home and you listen to it 100 times, you're going to hear every little breath in between the T and the yes that you took, or the yes and the T. And you're going to want to spend 2 hours in the studio just to fix that. It's ridiculous.
I mean, it's interesting because I had a conversation recently with a couple of people about, you know, they had the perfectionism mentality. And I was saying that because perfectionism is unobtainable, you will always fail. And what I mean by fail, I mean, this year we made 200 million, but we made 200 million, but we failed because the year before we made 300 million. Now, 200 million is still success to me as far as I'm concerned.
That's right.
So what happens is that when you don't meet your perfection, you become self-critical about your abilities to achieve something, and then it invites other people to join the chorus.
That's right.
And you'll never put out your work.
That's right.
And it's kind of put out your work and forget about it.
And forget about it.
Let it go.
That's right.
It now belongs to everybody else because people will always have an opinion.
You know what else is funny about that? And this is something else I point out to a lot of artists, and especially up and comings, when they come into my place. It's like, you know what, the thing about it is too, with all that perfectionism and everything, is that after you've done this work, chances are you will never listen to it again.
Yes.
Or will very rarely ever listen to, you won't even listen to it ever again. Anyway, so you're right. That once you've completed it doesn't belong to you anymore anyway. And you will never listen to it.
And it will take a life on its own, it will take a life of itself. It's almost a case that somebody may come up and says, that song, when I heard it, it changed my life. and it could even be a song that you hate. If I remember, Quincy Jones didn't want Billie Jean on the Thriller album. He hated the Billie Jean song. Well, I mean, you can still hate it.
Yeah.
You know,
Hate it all the way to the bank. even to this day.
I hate that song. I hate that song. You know, yeah, sure, yeah, take a couple of minutes. Yeah, go buy the aircraft. There you go.
Well, Stephen, you know, when you're performing, when you're up on stage, what does that feel like? Because we spoke about the processes, we spoke about content, but now let's talk about the performance. Are you okay with that, Ejay? Performance. That's my pixie moves, one of my pixie moves.
Oh,
yes.
yes.
You like it?
I like it.
Because
Well,
when
I'm familiar
do
with
you see how
pixie
easy that was? They're
Yes.
performing.
Yes. Yes.
Right. So what does it feel like when you're on stage? You know, what's the feelings?
That too varies from gig to gig, and because I'm pleased and proud to say that I've done everything from the tiniest little rooms, all by my lonesome,
Okay.
to festivals where there were up to, well, tens of thousands of people. And each has its decided advantage and each has its decided detriment. The wonderful thing about the little places is their intimacy. You can look right in people's eyes and you can really get a true sense of what's happening with them as you. And the detriment of that is that you can look right into people's eyes and you can see exactly what they're thinking and if they ain't happy. And it's arms crossed, and you know, and that's the downside.
Oh my God.
The arenas and the festival things, where, as I say, where there are thousands and sometimes tens of thousands of people. The advantage of that is that suddenly now, I mean, there is nothing like, you know, I mean, I hate to think of myself as a power mad person, but it is, you can't help but feel it.
I saw you at 40s of Disco at Wembley a couple of months ago, and you just took the stage by storm. You did some of the acrobatics that you did, Stephen. You know, but you were this energy force on stage, and I came away, I almost lost my voice because, you know, that energy just went voom.
Well, thank you.
But you can see that you were in your element, and also your backing singers, they were in their element. So I would say you do have that force and that energy,
and
which
I
is
feel
contagious.
it. I do feel it, and then when it comes back to you, it's kind of like, oh, especially being Stevie Geek, who I still see when I look in the mirror. Thankfully, nobody else sees him anymore, but I still see him when I look in the mirror.
Yes.
Stevie Geek, wow! You got 10,000 people at Wembley and they're all dancing with you and yelling for you. Wow, it's amazing.
See, I told you he's a pixie, isn't he?
I'm surrounded by pixies.
I still see him in the mirror.
Yes.
Of course, not when I get out on stage. I don't look like him anymore, or sound like him anymore.
Yeah, but I'm
still in there.
But I see that as the privilege of the creator or the creative. If you can create that, the privilege or the reward, you know, and it's the automatic reward, is the ability to have that power and to feel it, embrace it, take it, give it back. I mean, I've never done it to your level, but I do remember when I used to host shows and compare shows, it became quite clear to me after a while that everybody out there was waiting for my direction.
Yes.
And they're waiting for me. I mean, if I just said lean to the left, everybody lean to the left. If I said lean to, and then suddenly you get this kind of
Wave.
okay, I'm the boss.
I know.
And it's not the arrogance of
It's
it.
not arrogance.
It's just the beauty of and you're going, I have been given this privilege now to make your day. That's why I understand that hour or the hour and 45 that you're talking about. It really is the privilege of being able to make that person's day, and that is in their tens of thousands or their hundreds.
And for me, there is still, even to this day, there is still an amazement.
Absolutely.
That
It's got to be fresh.
Me.
Never get bored of it.
Doing this.
Never miss it. Absolutely.
You know, so I personally, I don't take it for granted ever.
Ever.
And as I said, where I wish that more mature school
Yes.
artists.
Absolutely.
I mean, that sounds really correct, but it just doesn't roll
That's
as
right.
nice as
Old school artists.
Yes.
Yeah.
If I had
I
to
take your point.
But you take my point. So if
Yes.
I watch, you know what it's like? I watched a show once where this guy, after he was in his 50s and there was a school reunion, it was a TV show, school reunion, and he saw one of his friends that was in his class and he had plastic surgery and he looked really young.
Yeah.
So he said to his wife, I want to get plastic surgery. She says, no, I don't want you to get plastic surgery. He says, why? He says, because when I see that crease in your eye, I remember how you lovingly looked at our children. When you have that down the face, I remember how lovingly you helped me do blah. And he was going, really, honey? And he said, honey, the wrinkles on... Don't go there. So if I go, old school, you can imagine my jewelry going,
Yes, I know.
But isn't that an
It's-
individual
it
thing?
is very delicate,
Ejay?
yes.
That's
I do
It's
appreciate
a very individual thing. So maybe you might have
issues.
issues around the old school, or
Yes.
even just where you are within your life. However, Stephen,
Wouldn't do it again.
Don't
what's
be false.
around?
So my heart's
It's
decided.
obviously done with love.
So yeah, it's done.
Alright.
It's true. It's done when it's done.
And Stephen, do you have any new material that's coming out?
Yes.
Yes. I didn't,
Yes.
continue.
Aye.
What have you got coming out?
Well, first of all, what's still out right now is 40th anniversary version of Native New York. Well, it's getting on for the 41st anniversary already. These things take time
Yes.
to get going. But I have to say I'm insufferably pleased with myself.
It's semantics.
Because it's when you're doing a remake of such a classic, my mother's voice will never be duplicated.
Fantastic.
Absolutely.
And yet, so it was trying to find the production and trying to find a way to do it in such a way so that we gave a nod and it was still there. Didn't corrupt it, but didn't. May I use the word bastardize?
Yes, use the word.
That's the word.
Yes, bastardized.
I didn't want to really, So as I said, with the old school meets new school meets old school, anybody who knows that song can still sing along. Yet the youngsters can still hear that kind of modern sort of housey thing that goes with it, and so it works on both levels. I'm really proud of it. I must say, the vocal performance done by one of my lead singers, KJ. She did an incredible job. Again, keeping within the framework and yet putting her own to it. And we have another cut called Sooner or Later, which is a bit older, but it's still making the rounds. We perform it at every gig. It was co-written by myself and Romina Johnson. And I'm really pleased with that one because, again, I channeled a few things. And we've done it at festivals and everything. And people are there in the audience. What I love about it, one of those other things that I get to see sometimes, is that people are singing along with it. Because by the second time you get to the chorus, you've got it. Pretty much. And I can see the confusion on people's face, which I love, because they're thinking, I know this. And yet they don't know it. They've never heard it before that particular day. And yet there's elements of it that are so familiar. They think they know it. And they probably recognize subconsciously elements of it that I channeled from other things.
Yes.
But I think it works in that way. And so we continue to perform it and continue to promote it. The industry has changed so much, it's really hard to just get things out like you used to. But it's okay, now it's just keep plugging away at it, keep performing these songs, and that sooner or later, now when we go to gigs, a lot of people know it now, even though they've not heard it except maybe once or twice on the radio.
Yes, wonderful.
And in winding down, Stephen, I'll give you your turn soon.
I do, I have a turn. Wow, damn, I'm having a turn.
As long as it's not a hot flash.
That's what I'm having actually. But is
It's
there
not a hot
anything?
flash, baby.
Get out of here. You don't do me like that.
Yeah, I don't do you like that.
Anyway, Stephen, for anyone, because you've spoken about the processes, you've spoken about the performances, you've spoken about a whole plethora of things that make up who you are. If there's any sort of advice that you would give someone who wants to get out there and do something, do what you love, embrace what you love, what would that be?
Well, I'm going to take on some of Ejay's semantics.
Ooh.
From the last time that we spoke. My mom told me many years ago to try anything. And we had a bit of a discussion about that. I still think it's a matter of semantics, but I certainly did take your point.
Yes.
That even sometimes the way you say things does have a way. So I will modify that to say do anything. Anything that you can, anything that it takes to get wherever it is you're trying to go. That's my advice. Get some more education if you need it. Talk to people. Ask for help. Whatever it takes, do anything.
Really?
What? That I'm taking his semantics?
Do anything. We can take this.
Oh, well, yeah.
He knows what I'm doing.
Oh, wow.
I don't know.
Do anything legal and within reason.
Yes. As part of your highest goods. That doesn't
See,
create
that's why
children.
semantics is, can be dangerous.
Don't worry.
See?
Yes.
See that? I'm sorry about that. See that? There I was trying to big you up a little bit, and
I was in the zone and it just got.
Okay, well this looks like it's going to be a long in the zone, so ladies and gentlemen, I'd just like to say a big thank you to Steven Collazo from Odyssey and also to Ejay, that's it Ejay, no, nothing else, to Ejay for joining me today on the sofa with Esther. Hope you've been inspired, empowered, and just go do it.
Go do it.
do it.
Go do it. Do it.
That's right.
We could have a little chorus.
No, I've heard you sing.
I'm going to leave that to one side. I'm just a guest here.